She had always known her family looked at her differently, but the day they called her a punishment was the day her world broke. At 16, heavier than most girls her age, she had been teased in school, scolded at home, and whispered about by relatives who claimed she brought shame to the family's reputation. Her parents never saw her laughter, her kindness, or her dreams, they saw only her body. One evening, after another argument at the dinner table, her father made a decision. If she cannot learn discipline here, let her learn it in hardship, he declared coldly. The very next morning, without explanation, she was led to the outskirts of town, to the house of a man everyone believed was a poor farmer. From now on, you will live here, her mother told her, her tone as sharp as the dust swirling at their feet. Perhaps working in the fields will teach you what we could not. The girl's heart sank. It wasn't just rejection, it was banishment. Her family turned away, leaving her standing in front of a stranger with nothing but a small bag of clothes. She felt like a burden handed off, a problem to be discarded. Shame burned hotter than the midday sun as she lowered her head. In her mind, one question echoed louder than all others: why am I never enough? She didn't know it then, but what was meant as her punishment would soon become her greatest blessing. She braced herself for cruelty. In her mind, a poor farmer would surely be bitter, ready to lash out at the extra mouth to feed. She imagined endless days of scolding, mocking, and backbreaking chores. With her heart pounding and her body tense, she stepped into the small, weathered farmhouse. But the man she met was not what she expected. His face was lined with years of labor, yet his eyes carried no judgment. He simply nodded and said, "You must be hungry. Sit, eat." He offered her a bowl of warm stew without another word. She stared at it, confused. No insults, no laughter at her sighs, just food and silence. The next morning, he handed her a basket and pointed to the chicken coop. "Collect the eggs, take your time," he said. No shouting, no rush. When she fumbled and dropped one, he only smiled faintly. "It happens to all of us." She blinked, stunned by his patience. Day after day, he gave her small tasks, sweeping the porch, feeding the goats, carrying water, and never once raised his voice. At first, she thought it was pity. But soon she realized it was respect. He didn't care how she looked or how much she struggled. He only cared that she tried. For the first time in her life, she wasn't being measured against an impossible standard. She was simply accepted. And in that quiet acceptance, something began to shift inside her. A seed of worth, buried deep for years, started to stir. One morning, while sweeping the porch, she noticed something odd. The farmer's tools, though old, were polished and sturdy, unlike anything she'd seen in the homes of truly poor men. The horses in his stable were strong and well-fed, their saddles finely crafted. Even the sacks of grain stored in his barn bore the seals of wealthy merchants. She wondered how a man who was supposed to be struggling could live with such quiet abundance. Her curiosity grew when she accompanied him to the market. As they walked through the bustling stalls, the merchants greeted him not with indifference, but with deep respect. Some bowed slightly, others rushed to offer him the best goods. They called him "Sir," a title no poor farmer ever received. She clutched the basket tighter, puzzled by the way people treated him like someone far more important than he appeared. Later that week, she overheard two men whispering by the well. "That's him," one said in awe. "He owns thousands of acres, but you'd never know it. Lives like a common man, eats like a common man. He says wealth only matters if it helps others." The word struck her like lightning. This man, this poor farmer she had been sent to as punishment, was in truth one of the richest landowners in the region. Yet here he was, living simply, treating her with kindness when no one else had. She realized then that his greatest wealth was not land or livestock, it was humility. She had always been told what she couldn't do, too heavy to run, too clumsy to dance, too lazy to succeed. But on the farmer never spoke those words. Instead, he quietly showed her how to plant seeds, guiding her hands into the soil. He taught her how to feed the animals, how to watch for signs of sickness, how to care. When she struggled, he never sighed or shook his head. He simply said, "Try again, you'll get it." Over time, she began to notice something about herself. Her strength, once mocked, helped her carry heavy baskets others could not. Her patience with the animals made them trust her easily. And when it came time to prepare meals for the workers, she discovered she had a gift for organizing, planning, and making sure everyone had enough. What others had called her weakness was becoming her strength. The workers respected her, not because of her appearance, but because she made their days easier and brighter. She began to laugh freely, something she had almost forgotten how to do. And for the first time, she looked in the mirror without flinching. She wasn't too much. She wasn't a burden. She was capable. She was worthy. The farmer watched quietly, as though he had known all along. "The world told you lies," he said softly one evening. "You were never broken. You only needed the chance to see yourself clearly." Her heart swelled. For the first time, she believed him. Weeks turned into months, and the girl's spirit transformed. Her shoulders no longer slumped with shame, her eyes shone with quiet confidence. The workers adored her warmth, often gathering around just to hear her laughter. She was no longer the frightened, discarded daughter, she had become part of something greater, rooted in dignity and purpose. When her family finally returned, expecting to find her thin, broken, and begging to come home, they were unprepared for the sight before them. She stood tall, her clothes dusty from work but her face glowing with pride. Around her, the workers greeted her with respect, calling her by name, smiling as if she were family. Her father's brows furrowed. "You look different," he muttered, unable to hide his confusion. Her mother glanced at the farmer, then back at her daughter, stunned that the girl seemed stronger, not weaker. The farmer stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Punishment is not what she needed. She needed love, purpose, and respect. And she has found all three here. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The girl looked at her parents and realized she no longer craved their approval. She already had something far more powerful, self-worth. Tears welled in her eyes, not from pain, but from gratitude. What was meant to break her had built her instead. She smiled, her voice steady. "I was never a punishment. I was a blessing waiting to be seen." And for the first time, she believed every word.